Well, yeah, good to see everyone. I'm Ron Story for those who don't know. I am the head of product at SpeakerHub, and we do this call every day at noon. From noon until 1, we will answer support questions, provide a bit of insight, but also celebrate the wins of those who are using SpeakerHub, or even if you're not using SpeakerHub, you're welcome here. Our mission at SpeakerHub is to help you to get on more stages. We're the amplifier of speakers. When I was growing up, we had a component system that was had a glass door on it. It had two speakers that were taller than me, and it had a CD changer and a tape deck. And there was one thing that had bass, treble, and volume. That part was the amplifier. That's where we fit into the lives of the speakers that we work with. We help you to amplify your message by getting you booked on 4 different types of stages, whether those are podcasts, local associations, or conferences, with the fourth being a reinforcement, which is getting you paid writing credentials with um, worldwide publications. So anybody have any updates since yesterday or since the last time you were here about a booking or something you discovered using the system? Nope. Okay, perfect.
Well, I
Any
have a
feedback on
question.
our, oh, go ahead. Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, I have a question. Does anyone here have any information on conferences, forums? Yesterday, I just did a search and I looked at the Travel Advisor Show, World Travel Expo, Digital Travel Summit, Arabian Travel Market, Rival 360, and I sent pitches to about 10 of them. And I'm just wondering, does anyone have any insight on travel conferences, internationally or domestic?
Okay. Well, you mentioned that you pitched the podcast. Did you search for any of the conferences in the conference search?
I did not pitch podcasts. I did a search on just a Google search of all of these different
Ah,
conferences. Yeah, no,
gotcha.
not podcasts, but just basically speaking on the stages at these different conferences. And I was just looking to just being creative. I was like more or less looking at global stages, basically international travel is what I was looking at. International travel tips, advice, just finding ways that I can speak at some of these conferences. And I was just trying to use my background as an international flight attendant to see how I could tap into that market. Again, just trying to pivot a little bit away from the DEI that's always there in my heart and soul, but I got to make money.
Totally get it. I have a question. Are you using SpeakerUp Pro? Have you ever seen this before?
Last time I was on here, you did open this up for me, and I familiarized myself with it a bit, but not. If you would, like to tell me about it a little bit more, that would be great
Okay.
because it's been a few weeks.
Okay. So let me go back to the beginning and then I'll kind of express it. I'll share it with you from there. So here at SpeakerHub, we build everything around a very simple concept called the speaker flywheel, right? And that flywheel consists of inbound leads where someone looks for you, and outbound leads, which are the opportunities that you decide to pitch yourself proactively, which is what you are currently doing, right? So you probably were following this process, Googling and searching for gigs, visiting the web page, doing the research, adding the contact information, and then you were going to repeat that 100 times.
Hmm.
Then you would have ended up with a spreadsheet, probably a bunch of wrong emails, had to find some email software. We just cut all that down and we said, hey, come over here, type in travel. Here's 407 of them, pitch them,
Hmm.
right? So that's the value of what we do. So that process that you were going down, I can
Hmm.
come over here right now and I'll click pitch. And in
Hmm.
15 seconds, it's going to look at what I do, look at the description of that conference, and write the email for me. So then I
Hmm.
don't have to spend the rest of my day Googling and building Excel sheets. So just that fast, I couldn't just go ahead and reach out. Hope this message finds you well. I'm writing to inquire if the Future of Mobility Conference is currently seeking speakers for its upcoming events. As a keynote speaker with a strong emphasis on sustainable enterprise and policy collaboration, blah, blah, blah. That's what my topic is in here, right? Now I can reach out to them directly. That took us 35 seconds,
Hmm.
right? By the time you would have Googled and clicked over and found the about page, I would have already pitched them.
Mhm.
right? So that's the value that we bring over here at SpeakerHub with SpeakerHub Pro is the ease of going from idea to action,
Mhm.
right? It's idea to action. Everything else in the middle is static. It's
Mhm.
because we've already done those Google searches, right?
Okay.
And let me show you real quick.
And that went to the direct person that is in charge of
Yep, we did the
automatically.
same thing you did. I'm gonna
Right.
show you right here. Like the same process you following,
Mhm.
Karina, Katharina, and a bunch of other folks do this for us. And
Mhm.
they just build this long, you know what list of gigs. So she
Yeah.
went in yesterday and she's doing the same work. Only thing
Mhm.
is that she does it once and everybody gets the benefit from it versus you having to do it over and over and over. Now,
Yeah. And I see several that I pitched.
yep. So, but this is what we do. So we go in and she goes in every day and she finds and updates leads. And this is her job. She doesn't do anything else for us but Google and put things in here.
Mhm.
Right. So that's the value of what we bring to the table. Right.
Mhm.
Does that make sense?
It does.
So,
Thank you for sharing.
Miss Ann, what's your question? You got to
We
win
had,
on the boat?
oh my goodness, let me get back to this page for Zoom. So Ron, let me put my hand down. So yesterday, I had an opportunity to pitch and used a lot of what you shared, but what I did not take into consideration is that the platform was not Zoom. You know, we had your scan put on the JPEG that we would use as a virtual background. And this is just a lesson learned, right? But we did not anticipate using uh, Teams. We thought it was going to be on Zoom. But my point is, we could not upload the JPEG for the background, and I had a green screen behind me. So everything you shared with us, and you may want to consider going back over it again at some point about what do you do when you're pitching live on a podcast and it's
Gotcha.
audio only? What do you do when you're pitching on a Zoom or some other platform and you don't have access to all of the scan this and put this in and all of that? And then what do you do when you're on when you're live on a stage? And all of that came in handy for me yesterday because I was able to pivot, not very well, but at least I remember some of what you told me and I kept reciting how they could connect with me. But I had everything on that JPEG and did not expect not to be able to upload to that Teams for my virtual background. So I just wanted to share that as a lesson learned. Thank you.
Yeah, you know what? Michelle brought that up the other day, and maybe Orain has a suggestion because she mentioned that you all were on Riverside one day, and Riverside didn't allow for the background upload, and Riverside only allows that for their like highest tier, right? So if you ever are going to be on a podcast and it's going to be on Riverside, you're going to have to use a natural background because they only allow on their enterprise plan for the virtual background, right? So I don't know how it works with Team. I know most of us are using Zoom by habit, so we kind of get spoiled by the Zoom features. But some of the other platforms, and that may be something that you ask or look at the links, because you can tell based on the link that they email you to join the podcast where you're going to be recording because it'll send you a link that says ScreenFlow or Riverside or Meet or whatever. So I would look at that link first. That way you know which system to put in place for yourself.
But
Does
that
that
was
make
the
sense?
lesson learned. Yeah, that was the lesson learned, Ron, the hard way. And I just wanted to share that for others so they don't make the same mistake I made because we all thought it was going to be on Zoom. It was not. And we did. And they did email us telling us it was going to be on. First they said Zoom, then it ended up being Teams. But that's the point I just want to make so we all can kind of learn together. So thank you for
Oh,
that.
100%. No, that's really good insight. I didn't realize that the that Riverside didn't allow it until I talked with Michelle the other day. And I'm like, I pay for Riverside. I think they do that. And it was like, nope. And yeah, so that's a lesson learned. Ray, what suggestion do you have?
Yes, so just to kind of piggyback on what Ann was talking about, I did a podcast and they used Discord. Now I've never been on this platform before, and even when I was on with the host, I jumped on early to give my self time to put the background and everything. But they didn't even know how to put the virtual background themselves. But this was also an audio podcast only, which I didn't know until that very moment. So when it comes to if it's audio only, you should try to have some kind of URL, a short version or a long version, whatever, and just ask the host to add your URL to the show notes. And probably you want to make mention at the end of the, whatever the show is, make mention to say, hey, I have a bonus, or I have this, or I have that. The link will be in the show notes for you. So make sure you check it out, et cetera, et cetera.
Thank you, Rain. That's exactly what we ended up doing. But I want to go back to Ron and the teaching that he does for all of us, because if he had not said that weeks ago, I would not have been as, I could have been better prepared, but I would not have been as prepared if we had not done this. So thank you so very much, because that's another idea that we can mention when we have that situation as a plan B. Oh, the show notes, and we did the person did say at the end that they would put all of my information in the show notes. So thank you for that. Thank you.
Yep. No, thanks, guys. This is very helpful. The goal here for those who are new, and we'll introduce VIP B Jensen in a couple seconds. I think that's her name. I see that down at the bottom. We'll let you introduce yourself. The goal of these daily calls is to provide insight and direction of the blocking and tackling, right? Since it's Super Bowl weekend, I'm gonna use some football analogies, right? The blocking and tackling of the speaking business, because a lot of times we're discovering this stuff on our own, and we don't have a group that can give us feedback about the direction. So, Ms. B Jensen, that's what I see. If you want to go ahead and introduce yourself, that would be great.
Thank you, Ron. And I'd like to start off by saying thank you, Chantel, for giving me the information about this group. And I thank you for being patient with me. I had a hard time signing on earlier. And my name is, again, B. Jensen. I'm the CEO and founder of Life and Career Transformation. I just recently launched my small business, and I'm really seeking to find stages to speak and talk about what I offer and service I offer for the community. And I would love to also learn more about your services and find common ground where we can work together and we can learn together and grow together. And I do extend my thanks to Chantel for inviting me to be part of this group today. So bear with me as I'm still learning how this group works and how everybody shares. And I'm here to learn. I'm also here to share and find ways we could work together. So thank you.
No, that's perfect. So let me give you the easiest way. And I see Dr. Flo will let you introduce yourself also. This is like a family reunion. Imagine being at Thanksgiving, everybody sitting at the table. We only got one rule: don't throw the bread at nobody, and don't throw a fork at anybody. And we just gonna be friends. So you're always welcome to ask any questions, whether you're a SpeakerHub customer or not. This is for speakers. Whether you're our customer or not, we don't really care. Do we want you to become one of our customers? Heck yeah, right? But you're just as welcome here at any point in time. We're here Monday through Friday from 12 until 1 p.m. And our goal is to amplify the voices of speakers by helping you guys to get on more stages. So B. Jensen, you are always welcome. We will help you as much as we can. Don't be shy. Ask whatever questions you have, because that's what we're here for. So we're going to let Dr. Flo introduce herself, and then we'll go to John's question.
Hi, everyone. Good, I'd say morning. I'm joining in from Tokyo. It's probably about 2:30 a.m. My name is Florence Enne, and I'm a speaker and strategic thriving facilitator, specifically for women. I'm also a medical doctor. I have a background in cancer research, and my passion is helping women thrive with ease, especially women who are going through transitions women who are seeking to reinvent and rebrand themselves, and women who are just looking to have a fresh start. Starting out, looking for ways to reinvent myself and rebrand as well. And I really cannot remember how I found SpeakerHub, but I'm so glad I did. And I've been trying to join this co-working sessions. And I'm glad I finally made it today. I'm here to learn. I'm here to collaborate. I'm here to support. And I'm just looking forward to being part of this family, because it does look, and now that I'm here, it does feel like a family as well. So thank you for having me, and I'm glad to be here.
Oh, yeah, no, you're always welcome. So anyone else that's new that we haven't introduced, everyone else has been here 19, 11 times. So, we're glad to have everybody. And so let's go to John's question, and we'll get started with the day.
Good morning, everyone. Ron, I want to hear your thoughts about being on a podcast, and the podcast host is basically dominating the conversation. Not necessarily allowing, I was on one yesterday and I was just wondering why the guy even invited me on the deal. What is your feedback or thoughts about that, and how should we approach those kind of situations?
Well, again, it's their show, right? So different people have different formats on how they do things. But the more you get experience with going on those types of shows, it's good that you experience that, right? Because there's some lessons in understanding how to be a good guest by dealing with a bad host. Does that make sense? So understand that the person who benefits the most from your interview is the audience. Does that make sense? So a lot of times in improv, we learn a technique called yeah and. And yeah and means you said that and I said, yeah, and this. So whenever I'm with a dominating host, I take their points and then I yeah and it.
Got it.
Right? Because if I yeah but it, then we're in an argument. Mm-hmm. Yeah, you said that, but yes, but no. I don't want to do the but because you're already dominating. So I'm just going to add to it. I'll just ad lib with you being Beyonce. I'm going to be Kelly Rowland in the background. Right? I'm going to be Kelly Rowland. Now, if I'm a really good background singer, eventually I'll have my own album. And people will come hear me sing if I do my own show. So all you do is support the guy.
Mm-hmm.
Does that make sense? Just yeah and him the whole time. Get your points off. But the minute that you make it confrontational, the people that are there to see him because it's his show will call you confrontational, and they won't ever call him a bad host.
Right.
They'll just say, why was he on there arguing with you? No, you say, man, that's a great point. Here's what I thought about it. And then you do your little 3-minute thing that we teach. Or give him the 20-second version and it forces him to ask you a question. Does that make sense? Because it still is their show. Imagine going on Jay Leno or other interview shows, and we see it all the time where they're kind of dominating the conversations. But the guest is just sitting there waiting to go down their guide. So there's just some bad hosts. Just got to admit it. But we have to be better guests. And the best technique I know is yeah and. In that situation, that's what I use. Now, if anyone else has any other feedback, feel free to share it. But that's my way to deal with it. So let me give you a great example. I want you to insult me. Like say, Ron, you are the worst. I've seen SpeakerHub. It's trash. I don't even know why people use it. Tell me something like that and watch how I deal with this. This is easy. Go ahead.
Ron, you are just look like the man on the Lemonhead box. You are you are just a terrible host, guest. You just, man, I just don't know why I even look at you every day.
You know what? I agree with you. I've been called worse, man. I mean, they used to say Boston baked bean. It's like the ones that's brown instead of the yellow ones. But that's a compliment because I know to some people I am kind of sweet and sour, right?
Right.
I can be sweet to some people's ears, but some people are kind of offended by me. So I've just learned to just be this lemon head dude and just keep going, Like,
Right.
why am I going to argue with you? I'm just going to
Right.
agree with you,
And roll with it.
right? Because if I drop the rope, it's like a tug of war. If you just drop the rope, they're going to look like the idiot.
Yeah. Yeah.
Now, if he comes back with another insult, the crowd totally sees it.
Mm-hmm.
Do you see that? You see how I just roll with it? They're like, dude, why is he picking on you? Why is he being an asshole to you? Let them decide that. But I just, I would have called me a Boston baked bean. Thanks for the compliment. And just roll along with it. Right? Because you don't win by fighting.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right? You don't win by fighting. Just roll with it. You're on his platform. Roll with it. Make him funnier. Make him the superstar.
Mm-hmm.
And then, they say, man, I got to have you back on. Cool. Good luck. Good luck with that.
I assume that's the best approach to take. And that's essentially what I did. But it was just kind of, I've been on a couple that seemed like that was like that. And I just wanted to get your feedback from it. I appreciate it.
Well, hey, man, if it gets up to 5, we know what the common ingredient is. It's your fault. 1 is, okay, that's a knucklehead host. 2, okay, 2 knucklehead hosts. 5, John, what you doing on these podcasts, bro?
Trying to figure it out.
All right.
Thank you, man.
But Arain, what's your point of view?
Oh, no, I was gonna well, it kind of ties into what John's talking about. I'm just curious, do any of us or how many of us take time to listen to some of the podcast episodes that we're pitching to even see if it's a good fit, or would that have been something John picked up on in listening to an episode like, man, this host just dominates the conversation. Maybe I don't want to go on that show.
No, that's a good point. And let me show you how you do that, right? So when you're in SpeakerHub Pro, whenever you click to pitch a podcast, so let's say I want to pitch this one, right here, Disruptors for Good. I can come over here and I can listen to it right here. You click play, it's going to allow you to play it right there. You can listen to it ahead of time before you pitch or before you respond, right? Here's another thing. Last year, we made a mistake, and in our Done For You service, we pitched someone to a podcast that they didn't really agree with ethically or whatever, or morally. We had no problem with it, but they had a problem with it. So they got invited to come on, and then they got mad at us. I'm like, you're not obligated to go just because they accepted your invite. Just back out. Just say, hey, I don't think this is a good fit. Something came up. I need to reschedule, or I decided to take my business in a different direction. You're not obligated to do these shows. Let me make that very clear. If you listen to it afterwards and you realize, I don't think this is going to be a good fit, cancel. It is okay. Right? Save yourself the headache. Life is too freaking short to be sitting there arguing with a podcaster that got 75 views. Move on. Pitch another one. We got 4 million podcasts. Right? So go ahead, Jasmine. What's your comment? And then we'll get into kind of some of the teaching for the day.
I have an interesting podcast that I came across in Toronto for the Toronto people that are on here. And it was about swinging sex or whatever the case may be. I'm saying, who? So, I said, okay, I'm not going to pick, but let me give me a listen. Oh, boy. Yeah, it was an ear. I'm going to be pitching that one. That's a community. I want to listen some more to find out what part of the city they're in so I can run the other side of the city. But they were like, what are they saying? What, I got it on here. It's crazy.
Yeah, but that's the world we live in.
That's the world we live
beauty
in,
of free speech. Everybody can have
you have the choice.
Whatever your topic is. We had someone she was the person who did coaching for elderly sexuality. That would be a perfect podcast for her because she was 70 years old. She was a guest on about a week ago on the co-working, and she talks about elderly sexuality and how at 70 she still has sex. That may be a great podcast for her. So we have to remember that our topics are our topics for a reason. I don't have to agree with it, but I don't expect everybody to agree with my topic either. So as long as we are a democracy when it comes to podcasts or stages. Why? Because you ain't got to buy a ticket. If you don't want to go to that conference, don't buy a ticket. You don't want to speak at that conference, don't speak at it. But we want to welcome everybody and their point of views. And I think it's good that Jasmine understands that ain't my spot. That is okay too. The same way you have the right to agree with something, the person reserves the right to disagree with it and be respectful, right?
My curiosity was piqued. You know, you kind of say, I wonder if I learned anything over there. And you say, come on, Jasmine, get back to work. Don't be distracted.
Exactly. So Rhonda, good to see you today. Sharon Brown. Wait, Sharon got her blue Beats by Dre on. And McNeil gonna have a problem. It's gonna be a red and blue war, you know? And has the blue version of the same headphones. What's your question, Sharon? Or did she disappear?
Oh, no, I'm here.
Okay, all right.
Yeah, I'm still here. No, I don't have a question. I just wanted to add to what we were talking about. In that one time I had an experience where one of my friends had asked recommendation for a guest, and I did, recommend someone. And when I went to listen to the episode, and I'm like, oh my, I even had called my friend and kind of like apologized because of the way, kind of like the way that the person, I just say the way that the conversation went. But what it taught me too is that, like, even though someone can have like a great podcast or speaker, but sometimes it can be that mood. And I want to say, I believe that person might have was going through something at that particular time. And so for us, kind of like what it taught me too is to be able to, one, don't take it personal, and just kind of like what Ron has said is to be able to pivot. One thing that I like to say is, in addition to, also, and things like that, especially with people. But part of a self-care thing is to be able to kind of look at, grab that feeling that we have, like, oh, this ain't going the way I want to, but to be able to also allow it to say the things that we need to say so that we can get our point across. So I just kind of wanted to add that in.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think there's a lot of but is what the technique is called. But you don't have to use those words. Or and is the but is the contrary technique. And is the I guess parallel technique, where your answer is going to be in parallel with what they said. So you can use different ways to get into it. It doesn't have to be and. It could be, oh yeah, I agree, plus this, or blah, 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 or here's a different perspective. You can get into that in different ways. I just don't want you all ended up in an MMA fight, on a podcast. I saw Chad Ochocinco was about to fight with the guy that James Harrison from the Steelers on a podcast yesterday. If y'all Google it, you'll see it. These fools were about to knock each other out, and one weighs 300 pounds, the other weighs 150 pounds. So we kind of know who was going to win. I see that James Harrison do bench press 600 pounds on YouTube. So I don't think he was going to have a problem with the little skinny 150-pound guy. But they was talking tough. So I just don't want you all to go through that. You may go viral, but it ain't always good for you to go viral. So what I want to talk about, a couple of things I want to go into today is, over the last 2 days, we covered two parts about podcasting, right? The first part was, how do you tell stories in a way that leaves an open loop for the podcast host to re-engage you to extend that story, right? How do you tell good stories, and how do you be a good guest? The second day, what we talked about was, how do you make money from going on podcasts, right? So I'm on this show. Do I even have my products and services right so that I can monetize that? Or am I negotiating with the podcaster in a way where they will send me out to their email list, and they can kind of be a co-promoter of what I do because they have a financial incentive through an affiliate relationship or something of that sort. Now, what I want to talk about today is how do you take a podcast interview and turn it into a speaking gig, right? Because that's what most people aren't doing effectively, right? Now, let me give you a great example of this. If you're a new speaker, in which 60% of our users at SpeakerHub, they did less than 5 gigs last year, right? So those are new speakers, even though they may have had changed their LinkedIn to say speaker a long time ago. If you only got on stage 5 times last year, you're still an emerging speaker in my mind, right? Because imagine if you were a professional basketball player or professional football player, but you only practiced 5 times last year. They'd be like, dude, you ain't no pro. You only went to the gym 5 times, right? So what I'm saying is, as an emerging speaker, we got to learn to turn those podcasts, which are what we're going to be on more frequently, into live speaking gigs. Is that something you all want to cover, or should I move on to something else? Because I got a bunch of topics I can talk about.
Cover
Is
that.
is that a good topic?
Yes.
All right. So here's the thing. Most people have never heard of you. If they ain't never heard of you, they probably ain't never heard you speak before. So there's a high risk of them bringing you in. So going on podcast at the beginning gives you some data or feedback if you don't already have a speaker reel in order to send to the event planner or the local association for them to try you out. The last thing you want to do is embarrass the event planner. Why? Because they all know each other. It's a small network. One of the things that we found is most event planners are not just in control of one conference. They're usually in control of 15 to 20 conferences under different names because they work for a big conference producer that's doing them all over the country. Does that make sense? So you may hear, oh, this conference is down in Atlanta. Yeah, they got 20 other ones around the country under different names that they do based on the city that they're in. And they know all the other ones. If you go to MPI, Meeting Planners International, you can see who all these people are, right? But they work on multiple conferences. So if you go and you embarrass yourself because you didn't live up to the hype, you know how y'all got group chats? Y'all got WhatsApp groups? They got WhatsApp groups too. And they like, boy, let me show you this. Boy, Ron came on here. Don't watch out for him. He may say something crazy. You don't want to be in that group chat. So a way for you to avoid being in that situation is to let them try you out ahead of time before they make that decision. And that's by showing the podcast episodes you've been on, right? The other thing is, what are they going to do? Luana, when you reach out to somebody, what's the first thing you think they're going to do to find out who you are?
They're going to Google me. They're going to go on LinkedIn. They're going to
come over. They're going to type in Luana Boone. And they're going to see who you are. They're going to see, okay, I see her right there. Let me see what she looked like. There she is. Bam. There's her SpeakerHub page. You see that? See, SpeakerHub is booming. We popping in these streets. We got our LinkedIn. We got our SpeakerHub page. Then so they can try you out. This is what they're looking to do. They want to know who you are. Right? Now, I'm going to click on videos. So we see her one video here. We see her interview like a boss. Perfect. So are all of these yours, Luana?
Yes.
Perfect. Yeah. So they're going to come in here and they're going to listen to these, right? And she has some recent ones. She has some from a couple years ago, which is great. But if you don't have this type of Google ability like Luana, podcasting is a great way to build it. Now, I've kind of perfected in some ways, making myself and my podcast show up, right? So you notice with me, they show my stuff right off the bat, right? Because I figured out how to make them follow me and how to make Google show my stuff, right? So with this being the case, now they can try me out when they look me up and they can see if I know what I'm talking about. Is this fair? But if you're not well established, you're going to send those podcast interviews to the local event host.
It's interesting that you said that, because a government agency I'm trying to secure a contract with, she asked about seeing a speaker reel and this and that or whatever, and I included a recent podcast episode for her to watch. So.
Yeah, no, it's really important because they want to know that you can share your ideas. Everybody's talked to somebody that can't tell a 30-second story, right? And they just go on and on and on. They just keep going. You like, dude, come on, man. And then the host got to jump in and cut them off. You don't want to be that dude, right? They don't want you coming in and putting people to sleep. If it's a small group, they need to know that you have an interactive presentation. The smaller the group, the more interactive it has to be. Let me give you an example. You see it all the time. When you go on a podcast, it's just not you talking the whole time. It's more interaction. When you go to a group of 15 people, there's going to be more interaction. When it gets up to 100 people, it's going to be less interaction is what I meant. So the podcast is more, a group of 15 to 20 is a little bit less. A group of 100 is a lot less. A group of 1,000 is no interaction at all. You're on an island by yourself. Is that fair? So they want to know, depending on which group you're going into, you want to know how much interaction am I going to be able to have with that group? But they also want to know that you're engaging and you're not going to come and be a college professor putting them to sleep. So that podcast thing allows you to at least get some credibility and to share a unique point of view. Got it? So that's the first way. You use the podcast as a way to get in the door. The second way that you do it, that you use podcast, is to align you with certain people. Let me tell you again, let me give you an example. Alignment is important. They may have heard of John Lee Dumas's podcast, Entrepreneur on Fire, but they may have never heard of Ron's story. But when they see me on Entrepreneur on Fire, they believe in me a little bit more. They have heard of Good Morning America. They ain't never heard of SpeakerHub. But when they see SpeakerHub on Good Morning America, they believe in us a little bit more. So podcast is a great way to get associative authority by aligning yourself with other people that may be more well-known than you. Make sense? But here's the other thing. Do the cool kids have one friend or many? The cool kids got all the friends, right? So the more podcasts you can get on, the better off you are, right? Because that means you one of the cool kids. Because they can see you on all these podcasts. They like, wait a minute. I want to do that. I want to be like that guy. I want to be with the cool kids, right? So that's why you want to go on multiples so that they can see you with all of the cool kids, right? They can check you out and see, well, man, he's been on all these shows. He can't be that bad. Makes sense? The second reason for going on the podcast is to put them on your own website. Because if you don't have a bunch of speaking gigs, you still need to be able to display that other people trust you, that you've been on these podcasts. Since I don't do a lot of speaking, I don't have a bunch of speaking photos.
That's a nice lemon head, though.
Oh yeah, that's a Boston baked bean. Thank you. Let's get it correct. we got diversity, equity, and inclusion with our candies.
Okay.
And and I'm gonna put a red hat on here too. No, that's old candy for the people who are out here. If you don't remember the Lemon Heads Boston baked beans by Ferrera, Lemon Heads, I think they had Lemon Head candy, right? Lemon Heads, Boston baked beans. And then that was the Boston baked beans, and they had red hots. That was one of the cinnamon ones.
Yeah, you're right. You're more Boston baked bean head. I get it. I see it.
See, there it is. There it is. There it is. See, I
Let me-
know where I fit, man. Look, if they gonna put you in the box, tell them which box to put you in, okay? Always remember that. They gonna put you in the box anyway. I'm gonna choose my box. I am 100% this. Or what's the other? Milk Duds. That was another one. That's me. Right? That's more of me right there. Let me turn around.
There it is. There it is.
There it is. There it is. There it is.
Mr. Milk Dud.
There it is. Right? So the moral of the story is podcasting is just a way for you to prove that you know what you're talking about. Does that make sense? So if this video will be on YouTube, well, one thing that some people are going to learn is they watch enough of me. They're going to say, oh, this dude is kind of lighthearted, got a sense of humor. He ain't going to be offended very easily, right? But that's what they're looking for. Most people say, man, I'm here because I like Ron. I could get this same information from somewhere else. I just like the way he talks about it. Does that make sense? I mean, there's a bunch of other speaker coaches. There's a lot of other great platforms to get booked on. But a lot of times at the beginning, it's all personality brand. Does that make sense? So you want to let them know that, yeah, you talk on leadership, but your personality makes leadership a bit more fun than someone else who may come on and be a bit more corporate or whatever, or less whatever you may be. Got it? So use the podcast as a way to show personality and expertise and relatability. So you want personality, expertise, relatability, because that's what makes a person interesting. We call that the attractive character, right? If you have someone that has personality, right, but they're not that interesting, it's kind of like, okay, he's telling a bunch of jokes, but they're kind of boring, right? But you got to be relatable at the same time. Like, I need to be able to relate to the people to let them know that I'm not any better than you. I'm just a little further down the road. We're on the same path. I just got started a little earlier. Versus I'm better than you. Look at y'all little knuckleheads, y'all only doing this. Nah, that ain't it. Right? Because they're going to get a review on what they thought about the speakers, right? From the audience. And they're going to have to make a decision on if they're going to bring you back, or sometimes if they will even keep their job if the person's too offensive. So any other questions about that? We got 12 minutes before 1 o'clock. Any other questions about how to leverage podcasts? Bart's done a good job of this. Go ahead, Bart.
First of all, you need to get those NIL deals signed of lemon heads and milk dud heads. So you got.
I'm too old for college, man.
And then you sponsors a SpeakerHub. You're blowing it anyway. My point now. Oh, I would say remember in everything that Ron is saying about who you are, your personality, and all that stuff. Let that come out. You're not there, even though you're talking with someone that's on the screen. Remember that you're entertaining an audience that you can't see. So you have to remember not only what you're saying, that you have to engage them. You want them to buy a product down the road or book you for a speaking engagement or whatever. So although you're looking at that one person, just remember you have an audience to entertain. And even by saying the word, your audience may like this, or your audience, by saying the word routinely, reminds you that you are speaking really to an audience, even though you're looking at one person.
Yep. So what he's talking about is called a dog whistle, right? So a dog whistle is where you kind of drop something in there, but you don't explicitly mention it, right? So let me give you a great example. If I'm on a podcast, I'll say, I was speaking in Detroit one time and this came up. I was doing some consulting in Michigan and this came up. I was working with a private client and this came up. You see how I just mentioned it? I do consulting, speaking, and I got private clients, but I didn't advertise it. I mixed it into one of my stories that I told you all to write yesterday, right? So I could just drop that in there and somebody, oh, he does speaking gigs. I wonder how much he charged, right? That's what a listener is going to hear. Right? Oh, you do that. Yeah. Shoot, let me hit him up. Maybe he can help me with this. Right? So those are called dog whistles, where you mention some of your stories, just mention the setting in which you were teaching the idea. Does that make sense? Because if you can mention that setting, the person can imagine, okay, so he is a speaker. Because he mentioned he was speaking at something. Cool, right? Oh, he does consulting. He mentioned that he had a consulting client that did this. Maybe I could be one of his consulting clients. So that's how you turn a podcast without saying, if you want to book me for speaking, that sounds cheesy. That's kind of goofy, right? You want to be able to drop it in there, just drop a little dangle and come back to it. Bart, you had another question?
Yeah, you just said it, but it was really just to, talk about those things. When I said, well, I'm speaking to teachers, and when I'm speaking to administrators, when I'm speaking to corporate organizations, but you just said it.
Yeah, that's exactly it. Yeah, we get it, right? That is exactly it. And, never feel ashamed to confirm anything I'm saying, right? Because it drives the point home. Again, I don't teach anything I haven't lived, but it also makes it better when other people have already lived it. So you can get 2 or 3 agreements and 2 or 3 different perspectives. Where I talked about the setting, Bart gave his perspective about the audience. You see how I said I did speaking or consulting or group coaching. Bart said I work with teachers, I work with hospitals, right? You see how he changed it to the audience and dog whistle that in there to let them know who he works best with. Learn to drop those types of gems. But it only comes from you getting comfortable with your stories. If you can't get in and out of that speaker flywheel like we do, or whatever your master framework in, it's going to be hard, right? I can hop into that framework from any point of view because I've done it so many times. So we give you that master framework inside of SpeakerHub, right? You got another question, Ange? Go ahead.
Yes.
This segment is
Someone
sponsored
asked-
by Milk Duds. It's a caramely chocolatey candy that looks like John Diggs and Ron Story's heads, All right, go ahead.
No, there's a question. You're about to speak about the flywheel. Someone asked, Shanna, asked about, she has the emerging and is only getting podcasts and wanted to know how she can look up conferences. So can you talk about when someone has access to conferences versus podcasts on our various plans?
Yep. That's a good question, right? So let me come over here and I'll show you. I'm gonna I was working on my State of the Union. So we basically, let me see if I can bring it up here, right? So there are 3 core levels of speakers at SpeakerHub, right? 2 of them are invisible because most people aren't there yet, right? One is like exploring, meaning you don't even know if you want to be a speaker. So we don't talk about that. That's like 5% of the people. And then the other 5 is like Les Brown, Tony Robbins, these super duper elite famous people. But our core audience is here, emerging, experienced, and expert. And the emerging speaker usually has under 3 years worth of experience, and they're only comfortable without flinching asking for $3,000, right? So that emerging speaker, we only give access to the podcasting associations in that emerging plan, right? On the experienced speaker, that's where they have 4 to 8 years, and they could ask for $4,000 to $8,000 without flinching. They ain't gonna, how much your fee? $8,000, $5,000. They're not like $39.99, right? They don't want to really push to 4,000, so they got it nervous. That's an emerging speaker. The experienced one can tell you their number with confidence. So if you can't name that number with confidence, you probably gonna struggle on that conference stage. Does that make sense? So the experienced speaker level with us includes conferences, and the expert level includes the media outlets, where you should be doing that consistently, right? The reason why even though we give you access to it, we don't really focus on media outlets for beginning speakers because you haven't really developed your core intellectual property yet. And it's hard to go up and to write definitively about something that you truly don't believe yet, that hasn't really survived the scrutiny of the public. Does that make sense? So why do I talk about the flywheel all the time because I needed to survive the scrutiny of the public. I've been teaching it every day since June of last year. Every single day I talk about it, and I welcome anybody to challenge me on it. Why? Because I built that off of 5 years of agency work, of actually observing it, and we have the data to prove it. So I can speak about it with confidence. I've been talking for 46 years. I've been speaking for maybe, if I added it all up, maybe 10 part-time every once in a while. But just because I've been talking for 40, don't make me an expert speaker right off the bat. I'm an expert talker in English. I suck at it in Spanish. So we try to make sure that we're putting you in a place to where you can be self-aware and earn the stages. Now, most people think that the conferences is where the money is. It's not. That's not where the money resides. Where the money resides. The money resides with the associations. Right? So I'm going to show you. I got a guy that we brought up yesterday. We could use Matt. I should use Matt as an example. Matt is incredible also. Matt Pollard, he hosted the Pro Speaker Summit with me, right? So let me show you here with Ross. Ross is a killer of associations. When we look at the different places that he's speaking, he did 132 gigs last year, right? Here's proof. Again, we will only show you what we know. He did 132 gigs in 2024. This is a room with a few rounds, maybe 100 people in there. This is a room with probably 30 people in there. This is a room with just him at the radio, right? Here's another room with maybe 100 folks, another room with maybe 20 people. You see how he's doing what I told you all to do with a camera right there in the middle? Remember I told you to record your speaker reels and have somebody on the side, your wife or your cousin, taking pictures of you speaking to the audience? He's living it. In this one photo, we see the camera. His wife is over here taking this photo for him to be able to use, right? This is at a country club. So the reason why I bring this up is that this room got 20 people in it. This is one of the most active speakers in the world, yet he's doing a variety of stages and stage sizes. So why? Because he understands. There's probably some clients in this room, right? Some of these businesses going to bring him in. You get corporate gigs from the association meetings. Let me say it again. You get corporate gigs by speaking at the associations, and then somebody that's in the audience, the CEO or the meeting planner says, can you come teach this to my salespeople? Can you come teach this to my leadership team? Does that make sense? Now, why is that really, really, really important? Because most of us are better at providing the service that we provide than what we are at speaking, because we've done it more. If you got a consulting business or some type of training business, you're training people every day. So your training muscles are a lot more stronger than your speaking muscles. So you're able to get that corporate gig to go in and do a training and make the money from there. So how do you upgrade? Everybody can choose whichever plan they want inside of SpeakerHub. We don't force you into one or the other. We make our suggestion, and then we use price as a fence to keep those out who shouldn't be there. Because it's hard for somebody who is not making that much to justify giving us $6,000 a year to pitch conferences, right? Because they don't see the opportunity. They're not optimistic enough just yet. But for those who see, man, I'm making $8,000. If I just get one gig with them, this pays for itself. They have no problem with picking those plans that match. So we try to use pricing as a fence to make sure that people kind of stay in their lanes. But you're all free to upgrade. I hope all of y'all upgrade to expert. We just raised the prices yesterday, so definitely upgrade. No, I'm just kidding. But moral of the story is that that's the reason why certain things are open to certain people, or depending on which level you chose. We didn't choose that level for you. right? We didn't choose which level you should be in. So hopefully that answered the question. We're at 1 o'clock, which is where we normally, I just kind of talk about going into overtime. Today,
Yes,
overtime can be 30 minutes because my next meeting isn't until 1:30. So if anybody wants to add anything to that, I know Zach is here. Zach got a lot of perspective, but he's just observing today. So if he has something to say, feel free to chime in.
we have Karima. We have a new person. I don't think
Karima,
Karima
what's up?
has been here before, so I wanted to welcome Karima in.
Karima, you want to say hi? Hello. Okay, maybe Karima's not going to say anything, but yeah, welcome everybody. Any feedback, thoughts on why we do the tiering and the different levels of speaking? If you did the speaker status survey, right, where we told you which level you probably are in, that thing is accurate. Trust me. I built it myself. It's built on a lot of data. I've met with 4,500 speakers. Everybody that has responded, a lot of people send me emails. Man, that thing was right on. And I'm looking at them like, what was your thing? They told me, yep, that was you. Right? Oh man, well, only it says only 3% of them are in the elite. Yep, I know them 3 people. I know exactly who those 3 elite people are because I sent them the survey to do it. Right? So Bart, question, comment?
This comment. So first of all, I don't want people to think that I'm all that in a bag of chips because I'm not. Well, I am in my own world here in this house, but not on this platform here. But my point is, when I do say something kind of echoing what Ron's talking about is because what he's saying is actually happening to me. So I don't want you to think that, yeah, Ron, that's happened to you and because of your experience, et cetera. And I've started this in November, which he kind of says often, and I'd spoken a lot before, but I had not charged a lot before or at all for that matter. I thought I was just giving a service to the world. Okay, dumb me. But I've learned a lot in this on really how to do a business. I had to tell Ron in the very beginning, well, now you put me to work. I was only in the inbound process and not in the outbound process. And obviously that creates a lot of work, as you know, if you're doing the work. So I'm only living what he is saying to do. Some of the things I was already doing and the things that I wasn't, I just do what he says, even the, bottom line up front of getting booked in the first place. So I just want everyone to kind of know that, from that perspective. And they will Google you. I got on a call. I got a pre-podcast call last evening. And before we started, the person said, well, I know that you served at 101st Airborne Division. I know that you have an MBA from this school. My relative went to this school. My husband served in the 82nd. They went down. I know you're from Ohio. So they're going to Google the heck out of you and that's good for you because now you don't need that much of an introduction. The ice has been broken and you can go for it after that. They're already, especially if they align it like that, you're already in.
So I think that's a great point, Bart. And I have an illustration to show that, right? So when I meet with a lot of speakers, they tell me all the time, well, I've already done podcasts. I do this, I do that, I do that. And I said, that's great. But this is kind of random, right? So this is what I call the seldom book journey, where you did a podcast 3 years ago. You did an association gig 6 months ago, but you haven't spoken any time in between. Right? So there's no leverage in these spotty, yaddy, 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 yaddy things, right? That's my Meg Thee Stallion reference for y'all, right? There's no value in this spotted thing. So then there's the linear version. This is for the people that are sometimes booked. We went from seldom booked to sometimes booked, where they do a few podcasts, they do a few associations, they do a few conferences, and then they start back over. So okay, I'm on my podcast run. Now I'm gonna be on my association run, and then I'm gonna do my conference run. And we hear the questions here all the time. Okay, I pitched a bunch of podcasts. When should I start pitching associations? And we're like, no. We're gonna give you a formula. You should be doing all of them at the same time. So this is the scattered approach every once in a while. This is the linear approach. I'm focused on this for this quarter. I'm gonna focus on that the next quarter. We teach a flywheel approach. What is a flywheel? A flywheel is something that builds momentum over time. Once it gets going, it keeps going faster and faster. That's really, really, really important. In business, that means doing something small and smart actions every day that add up over time. It's just compounding interest, right? So let me show you what we talk about. The first thing you're going to need is basically a strategy. Whatever your goal is, you need a strategy. And that strategy is the speaker flywheel. Depending on which level of the flywheel you're at, you should be focusing on those types of gigs. So you need your inbound, which is your speaker page. You need your outbound, which is SpeakerHub Pro, or some other type of tool that helps you to do that. And then you focus on which ones make sense, whether that's podcast and associations, podcast associations and conferences, podcast associations, conferences, and media outlets. Based on where you are in that flywheel, we give you the formula. So if you're emerging, here's what you should be doing at the same time. It is not, I'm going to do podcasts for 6 months and then I'm going to start pitching associations. You're doing them concurrently. It's at the same time, right? And then once you get over into the experience and you start adding conferences, once you have a speaker reel and things like that, then you start upgrading the conferences. Does this make sense? So you toss the conferences in. And then you end up here. Now, let me give you some data on this. Before you tell me that, oh man, well, that's only 12 gigs. 60% of speakers did less than 5 gigs. We got the data. I'll show it to you. Like to hear it, here we go, real quick. Let's go through it. Let me stop sharing before I put somebody's email address on here publicly. I don't want to do that. I'm going to bring up the questions only though, right? So let's look at the questions and see the results. Because these results, here's why I like to show this stuff. Number one, y'all ever heard of something called imposter syndrome, where you feel like you ain't good enough, right? Because we seen somebody on LinkedIn or on Instagram killing it or appearing to kill it. Instagram is just a highlight reel. It is. It's just a highlight reel. How many of y'all ever pooped on yourself? If everybody don't raise their hand, they lying because you was a baby at one point and used to poop on yourself several times a day. But somehow we conveniently forget that we used to poop on ourselves as we get older. As a speaker, you were a baby speaker. You did a lot of stupid stuff. I have too. I can tell you some horror stories, right? But we got to be willing to let people know we pooped on ourselves. But we're comparing ourselves to other speakers who we think don't poop. Right? So I show you this data to give you a reality check that you're doing okay. So when you're like, man, I got to do more. No, right now you may just be average. And here's how many gigs the average speaker is doing. 40% did under 5 gigs. Another 22% did 6 to 10. So that means 62% of speakers are speaking less than once a month. But the majority, if we had to pick a segment, is doing less than 5. You should feel comfortable. It's okay. You're average. There has to be somebody being average in order to know who's below average and above average. So the majority of people in the standard deviation will be, the mean will be there. But here's the other part. 65% of those folks, you add those two groups together, they make under $25,000 a year from speaking. Y'all think y'all not doing that well because y'all only made 15 grand from speaking last year. You're actually doing very good. This is not negative. I'm not pooping on anybody. Look, despite what the big coaches selling the $99 million courses, only 3% of speakers did $300,000. So what they did, they looked through their list of 200,000 people and they picked out the 2 that made $300,000 and put them on stage. Now it makes y'all feel uncomfortable, making y'all feel like y'all not good enough, but in reality, you're okay. Look at this. If we add this to this, That means that 79% of speakers make less than $50,000 from the stage. And y'all thought y'all were bad. You're not. Now, the great thing is that you don't have to stay there. You can move up. We can give you the tools to move up, because the only difference in these folks over here that's doing more is the number of gigs they did. So I put the data into ChatGPT, and ChatGPT said the difference between someone making $25,000 a year as a speaker or under 25,000 and making more than 50,000 is just going up to 21 gigs. 21 gigs, small group or large. 21 savage. That's what y'all need to be. Y'all need to learn to be 21 savages, right? Now, why is that important? Because that puts you in a different stratus of income, but it's all about activity. People think that, oh man, well, everybody getting paid. No, 75% of speakers charge under $5,000 per gig. So your speaking fee at $3,000 is pretty average. Wait, hold on. Let me stop this. I got to see y'all face. Is this surprising information? Because it's contrary to what you're going to hear on Instagram and on YouTube. Because the thing going to say, make 8 figures in 2 months, quit your job at Amazon today and become a speaker. Tell your story about how you lost your cat when you was 13 and people going to pay you $1 million to hear it. My dog ran away when I was 12, and this is why I became a millionaire. Get out of here with that crap. Does this make sense? What's wrong with making a decent living sharing your story? You know the average income in the States is $42,000? $42,000 average income in the States. So if you want to do this part-time and make an extra 20, 30 grand, it's a good business to be in part-time from your 6-figure career that you may already have. But we can't believe the marketers. All Marketers Are Liars is a great book by Seth Godin. Go check it out. And he talks about how marketers struggle with telling the truth because they isolate the heroes. Is this fair? Right? So feel good about yourself. You're on the right path. You're in the right spot. You just got to do more activity. Right? So we found the difference is that those who got booked more, they weren't waiting on referrals. They were proactively pitching. Right? So let's look at this. I'm going to show one more stat that I think is killer. So actually, I'm going to bring up my ChatGPT thing because I put some analysis in here and they gave me some good stuff back. Uh-oh, my session expired somehow. Let me sign back in. All right. You stop the share so y'all don't, I know some of y'all hackers, y'all be trying to hack my email addresses. Let me get that off the screen.
Kevin laughing. I think it's Kevin.
Yeah, is it? I know. That's why I know. I didn't want to say his name, but I'm glad he raised his hand, you know? So here's what we found really quickly. All right, let me go through this real quick in the next 5 minutes, and then we'll open it up for questions. Because I think that this data is one of those things that some people will use to make you feel insecure, and I'm going to use it to give you a hug. Because it's hard. Public speaking is still one of the top 5 most feared things to do in the world for human beings. Yet you have the courage to do it because you wanted to help somebody. And you're willing to do it for free. You're willing to risk being booed for free because you care enough about somebody else. That is honorable. Don't let these people make you feel bad, make you quit on your mission to give back to the world because you don't make as much money as them. They're idiots. Your favorite speaker coach don't want to be a speaker. That's why he coaching. And tell them to call me because we didn't already had the conversation privately because I work with all of them. They don't want to be speakers either. That's why they coaching. Right? So let me show you. Here it is. Here's what we found real quick. 65% of speakers earn under 25 grand. 40% did less than 5 gigs in 2024, but they want to double those number of gigs. The majority of speakers make less than 25 grand a year and do less than 10 gigs. But here's the thing. Most speakers want 11 to 20. I think you need to raise that just a little bit if you want to do it full time. Because here's what we learned about the top earning speakers. The people who make over 100 grand, they did at least 21 gigs. Speakers with 11 to 20 gigs, you know, they transition from the under 25 to the $50,000 range, right? But top earners rely on outbound pitching and strategic marketing. They're not just waiting on referrals. They use proactive outreach, they invest in their SEO and their speaker profiles, and they have regular sales calls. The average number of sales calls for a speaker that is done, we had hundreds of them do this survey, was 5 a month. That's 1 a week. You imagine if I was going to build a business only doing 1 sales call a week. I got to do more than that if I want to get more gigs. Is that fair, Luana?
Yes, it is.
Is this helpful? Is
Oh,
this
everything you-
encouraging?
No, I've been listening intensely. Everything's very helpful, very encouraging. I see a lot of things I was doing wrong, and I see a lot of things I was on point with. But I'm going to try to become more engaged with this group. I've been super busy, but I'm going to actually set the Zoom in my calendar, in my Google Calendar, so I can make sure to log in even if I'm traveling.
Yeah, I mean, this is the truth. We're gonna give you the truth, right? So here's what we know. The
With
successful-
several rap songs.
Exactly. With body yaddy yaddy. Yeah, I got it all. I know Meg Thee Stallion, I know all of them, right? You know, I know all them songs. I don't know why, but I do. They use outreach, they leverage digital stages like podcasts, and they monetize every opportunity. Right? So this is what we're trying to look. Out of all the speakers that we surveyed, only 39 were investing more than $500 in marketing. We surveyed hundreds of speakers, only 39. Only 39 said they spent more than $500 in marketing, right? On a monthly basis. That should be a sign that there's some opportunities to get your stuff together, right? Most speakers hold 0 to 5 sales calls a month, and referrals work, but proactive outreach scales bookings faster, right? So that's all that we're trying to say to you guys. Any questions about this survey? We've had hundreds of people do it over the last week. It's an ongoing thing that we'll just keep running all year round to gather data. We hope to get 5,000 to 6,000 people that can complete this in the next couple of months. But this is what we're using it for, to let you know that you are good enough, first. Number 2, you are in the right place, because we can help you to get those more gigs, right? And it's okay to be a beginner, right? Any other comments? Any questions in the chat, Ange, that I missed?
No, you didn't miss any.
Okay, cool. Yeah, if you're not
That's fine.
proactively pitching yourself, it's not that you're not growing. You may be growing in your knowledge, but you're probably not growing fast enough to reach the goals that you have. Does that make sense? Because we all are growing and learning new things about our expertise. But if we're trying to get to our goals, you can't take a passive approach. Nobody ever, Dr. Flo, did somebody give you your medical doctorate degree? Did they just find you worthy and give it to you? Or did you have to stay your butt up every night studying?
Absolutely not. I worked real hard to get to where I am with a lot of support, but absolutely not.
Exactly. So we'll provide you with the support here as long as you're willing to do the pitching. We used to do done for you pitching, where we would pitch for people, right? And we cut that program. It no longer exists. We got rid of it, right? Because we learned something called the IKEA effect. The IKEA effect is when someone builds something themselves, they feel more pride about it and they care more about it than if it was given to them. So IKEA, here's what they did. They did a study where they gave people furniture and they told them to write a price on what they would pay for that furniture. And then they gave people the same furniture in a different room, but it wasn't put together and they had to put it together. And they said, put the price on here that you would sell this for. It was the same identical desk and tables, and the price was double when they put it together themselves. We found that to be true. And this is no offense to the thousands of speakers that I worked with over the last 6 years. It's just the fact of what I learned from working with you guys. Those people who book themselves are less arrogant in how they talk to me. Why? Because their expectations aren't that I'm their slave agent. Well, I'm supposed to get this, and I'm supposed to get that. Cool, let me send you a refund, right? Those who are using the system, they're like, man, I went on this podcast, it was great. Yeah, because they booked it themselves. The food tastes a little better when you cook it. The food tastes a little bit better when you cook it. So we want to teach you how to fish. We want to make sure that you can get the fish that you want out of the lakes that other people just swimming in. Some people go on podcasts, they don't know how to get clients out of it. I'm going to show you how to go in that same lake and pull clients out of that. I'm going to show you how to go to the same association that you spoke at for free and make it a paid gig. Is that fair, guys? So you feel better when you book yourself because you're independent. You're like, man, if nobody ever wants to book me, I don't ever get an agent. I can do this on my own. That's the brilliance of who you are. You're self-promoted. That's coming back, by the way. Y'all, that was our group that Kevin was a part of. We're bringing back self-promoted and the Rocket Man. The Rocket back there. My son stole the little Rocket Man, but they're back. They're coming back. Jasmine, what's your question?
Ron,
what's the what?
I'll let Jasmine go.
No,
and then I'll come back. I'll remember.
You know, Ron, like I said, as you know, I was involved in building directly involved in more than 20, wellness centers. And that means you're hiring a lot of people in all different categories. And, everyone know when I call a meeting, on a Monday, if I wear a red dress, I was going to break it down simple. Because that's when I hear all the grumblings. Oh, it's taking too long. Oh, that one is better. Oh, this one is better. So they're going to be hoppers, right? And I find in my experience that when you're committed to something, you find a way to make it work because you're committed. You already decide in your mind that this is where I want to go. For instance, when I came on and I was pitching, and I was not looking, and then I started looking, and then I started saying, okay, I'm getting the response, and sometimes I'm saying, oh, I'm getting too many responses right here, right now. Let me and it's just you find a way to work through it. So you're right, you're going to find people who are going to come on because they're looking, they might say, I'm going to get a speaking gig for 10 grand. Let me see if SpeakerHub can get me that speaking gig by spring. Then therefore, this is not the right platform. This platform is meant to, for people who have committed and know and is willing to put in the work to get to where they want to go. And that's why I'm here. I wouldn't be here. I put in my calendar from January to December, I block this time. And everything else come forward because I realize this is important for me, for my vision for where I want to go and what I want to accomplish. Nothing happens overnight, and that's by experience for me. Nothing happens overnight. So I have the stick-to-itiveness to go through the process. And what I don't understand, I ask. And like I'm still discovering this platform. And I'm listening to every one of us on the lunchtime when we speak, we gain insight. For instance, Dr. Flo, it's 2 p.m. 2 a.m. in the morning. It'd be hard for me to get up at 2 a.m. I'm not a morning person. You know what I mean? So you listen to people who are committed to find out something, to go forward. And to tell the truth, Ron, it's not about Ron. It's not about Ron right now. It's about your commitment. He's here to facilitate where we want to go. So whether, Ron, they like you or not, it's not about It's about them and where they're committed, and you're going to do what you want to do, and you're going to lead us the best way you know how to lead us, and you're going to champion for us the best way you want to champion. And always say to people, if they're jumpers, and I call them hoppers in my past business, You have to take yourself with you. You're not going to change. You know, if you figure I'm going to go down the street and work for XYZ, you're going to take yourself, your beliefs, your stick-to-itiveness, your design, your learning abilities with you. And you're going to keep hopping for the rest of your life. That's my little TED Talk. Ta-ta.
No, that's it. That's it. No, I
Thanks,
agree.
Justin.
The world is a reflection of how you see yourself.
Yes.
When we feel good about ourselves, we feel good about other people, right? Kids are a great determinant of whether you're a positive person or a negative person. Kids hate negative people. They love the fun person, right? So go hang out with some kids. If they run from you, work on your attitude, because kids love happy, fun people. If every time you see all the negative in everyone else, you probably seeing the negative in yourself a lot, right? So be a bit more optimistic in your opportunity and start to see the opportunities in other people. So I want to always, when we're on here, I want to always let you all know that we can get down on ourselves because we're comparing ourselves to the wrong people. So really quickly, I want to tell you one. Actually, I'm going to let Zach say something. I got 4 minutes, Zach. Then we got to hop off.
I'll be real quick. Hey guys, excuse me. I want to check in with everybody that's on screen at the moment. Just real quick show of hands. How many of you identify and would call yourself a speaker? Real quick show of hands. Okay. And maybe you're on the fence. I don't quite identify as being a speaker. I'm emerging. I'm working toward that place. I would like to be a speaker in the near future. Did everybody raise their hand before? So there's somewhere in between. Okay, regardless of where you're at, I want you to think for a moment in your mind, when you think of a speaker or see yourself speaking, where do you see yourself? For most of you, you saw yourself on a stage. Now, who taught you to put yourself in that little container? Here's a simple reality. I don't care if we're talking about Oprah, if we're talking about Tony Robbins, if we're talking about Elon Musk, if we're talking about Les Brown. If you really take a moment to think about it, where do you see them? Where do you hear from them? They are omnipresent. They're freaking everywhere. You might identify with them being on stage most often, but they're on radio, they're on podcasts, they are on stages, they are in books, they're in written publications, they are everywhere. And one of the beautiful things that Ron and the team have created here at SpeakerHub is a really simple tool to get on the 4 most predominant channels and build that flywheel so that you can create the ultimate outcome that you want to get. But most people are trying to skip steps. If you try to rush success, you run to failure. It's the actions that we take consistently that build that momentum that will lead to the ultimate life and experiences that you guys want to have. So the thing I wanted to leave you with real quick was take that step back and really consider what box, metaphorically, may you have put yourself in. How can you expand your vision of what it means to be a speaker through podcasts, through associations, through stages, and ultimately media? And what are some of the benefits of speaking in all those places, increasing your frequency, even if you're not monetizing it in the beginning, and we'll teach you how to do that more effectively. But what are some of those benefits? Power and repetition, finding your voice. Repetition is the mother of all skills, so we got to utilize those opportunities. So I just wanted to throw that out there real quick. I appreciate you giving me the last 3 minutes, Ron. Sorry for interrupting, brother.
Oh, no, man. No, it's all good. My next call is actually with John. I think John jumped off. Yeah, so I mean, if John hops back in, put him back in. But so
Okay.
here's what.
Ron,
Go ahead.
I wanted one thing. You mentioned self-promoted, and I think most people here are SpeakerHub, but they don't know the history of
Okay,
self-promoted
yeah,
or what
don't-
even the Rocket Man is and means.
Wait, we'll hold off on that. We'll bring that back. We're
Okay.
gonna bring it
Oh,
back.
you mentioned it. I thought, okay.
That was an open loop. We just left it
Okay.
open.
See,
We're
I
gonna
try
bring
to
it
close
back.
all the loops
We're
in my
gonna
role.
bring it back. We
Okay.
got speaker launch
Okay.
coming very soon. Very
Okay.
soon. Right. So here's the one thing
I'll
I
leave it
want to
open.
kind of put some perspective around, right? I want to thank Zach for being here. Zach has worked with the best speakers in the world, right? He was I think the head of development and training for mastermind.com and Tony Robbins and Dean Graziosi, right? So to have him here to be able to share with us the things that he's known from working with some of the best speakers and presenting to some of the largest audiences and stages in the world, we've always promised we were going to bring the best people. whether they're here for a day, for a year, or for a lifetime. We wanted to give you access to people that have done it, right? It's a whole different perspective when you ain't never done it, right? America right now is going through a lower level hiring crisis. The problem is that everybody gets their first job, they work there for a year, and then they become a coach. It's like, what? So America is outsourcing all of their lower level jobs because the new generation of kids that are 20 to 25 keep quitting because they don't want to move their way up. They want to buy the Mercedes tomorrow. They want the BMW next week, right? So we can't do that with speaking because you have people's lives on the other side of your advice. The guy who's working at McDonald's, he ain't really hurt nobody unless he's dropping the food on the floor, right? But with the advice that we give, especially if you're speaking on anxiety, anything with mental health, anything with investing, anything with wellness, you can really hurt people. So you got to get good. You got to get comfortable with it and understand the risk. There's a lot more speakers and trainers that are out there. There will be a need in the future for errors and omissions insurance based on the topics that we're talking about nowadays, because people will start suing the speakers. A lot of the corporations stay away from mental health things because they don't want the liability of their employees following the advice of someone who's not an accredited doctor giving mental health advice. So you got to be careful with that, guys. And I'm talking to anybody who's listening. I don't know anybody on here, their personal background. What I'm saying is what I'm seeing in the marketplace and what I'm hearing from a risk perspective, right? So, John, did John come back? John didn't come back. So we'll keep going. Moraine, what's your conversation?
Just to add to a little bit to what Jasmine was saying, we are only gonna get out of SpeakerHub what we put into it. So if you want to be on more stages, want to be on more podcasts, I never even thought about doing podcasts until, we were in these meetings and just, I started pitching, and then one came, then another, and I'm going to continue to at least every day or so try to pitch. So we're only going to get out of it what we put into it. And I have this meeting on my schedule, and if I'm available, I try to be on as best I can. We see Anne, who's literally on vacation for 6 months, and she still joins the meeting if she can while on vacation, because the value, and I always say this all the time, the value we get out of this meeting from Ron and the team, whether we are customers or not, is invaluable. So just wanted to add that.
No, that's cool, man. I appreciate the kind words. It means a lot. Rain has been with us for a while. For all the people who have lifetime, Moraine got his lifetime when it was $97. We've grown. We've grown since then. That had to be like 4 or 5 years ago when it was that cheap. But that's when Moraine got in with us a long time ago. So Maria joined us today. She's our designer. I don't know if she has anything she wants to share, any updates or anything from what we're working on, but I see Maria's in here. Any other questions? B. Jensen, what are your thoughts? It's your first day with us, Dr. Flo. What are your thoughts?
Well, thank you for sharing the tips as well as, the struggles that everybody goes through in really building their visibility and credibility out there in the world. Thank you for defining what the difference between emerging leaders and exceptional speakers are, and the keen advice that you have made in terms of we should really focus and be honest about ourselves as to where we're at and find the right match to our level at that point, and really manage our own expectations and give ourselves credit. And I think those are valuable tips that you're giving us, because oftentimes we tend to be so hard on ourselves because they set the standard so high and we aim too high and we fall too hard. So I think your kind of practical, pragmatic steps into know the reality of where you're at is really valuable, and accept that and find the right match at where you're at, and then just be happy, celebrate whatever baby steps you're taking towards your own progress. And I thank you for that, and I thank everyone else who contributed in all your tips. I hope someday that I too will be able to like gain my voice in this group and offer my perspective more. So thank you so much.
No, thanks for
Very
joining us. We're
informative.
always that means a lot. I mean, long vision, short steps, right?
Yeah.
Long vision, short steps. It's the best way to go. Dr. Flo, you got any opinions before we hop off?
I'm just taking it all in. Thank you so much. And thank you, everyone, for all the contributions. I have learned so much, and I'll do my best to join in as often as I can. This is
And-
great. I really appreciate the work that you're doing with SpeakerHub, and I'm looking forward to seeing how far we can go with all this.
No, that's incredible. I want to share something with you, Dr. Flo, because I know all the time you may not want to be up at 3 a.m. hanging out with us, but you can hang out virtually, meaning you can come in every day. We post the days before's thing. So we
Right.
record them every day and we put them in YouTube. You can go to speakercoworking.com and you can see all of the previous ones. So if you miss tomorrow, you can come in and still watch it.
Thank you.
So right now we're 2 days behind because Raymar didn't have my password to my Zoom to get them downloaded, but those will be updated. So today should be up. You should see the 4th, 5th, and 6th up by the end of today. And then we'll be here tomorrow. That'll be up by the end of tomorrow. So you can always join us virtually. And, I don't want you staying up all night. I know you got lives. You got real lives to save with what you do. So
Absolutely.
I want to be respectful of
Thank
that,
you.
but I also want to be helpful with your new endeavor.
Thank
Any
you.
other
I truly
questions?
appreciate that.
Oh, yeah, you're welcome. Any other
Yeah.
questions, guys, before we go? Thanks, Zach, for joining us. Good to see you again, Cardis. Hopefully this was helpful. B. Jensen, Bonnie, Dr. Sharon, thanks for your insight and your perspective. Luana, good to see you. Thanks for joining us and turning on the camera this time, which is good. If there's nothing else, I'm going to go grab some
Ron?
lunch. Oh, go ahead.
But before lunch, Bonnie just asked me a question. Bonnie, do you want to ask the group?
You mean the suggestion that I made? Oh yeah, it was a
Yes,
question.
I think.
Yeah.
Yes.
Ron, if you guys could pull maybe some specifics together in part of a training for us on how to use calls to action and build more connections through the podcast's lens. More specifically would be super helpful. Thanks.
Yep. So I'm glad you brought that up. So we reviewed it this morning. I wish I could show it to you. We're doing a domain change right now. The new course platform is like ready. We tested it out this morning. Gustavo showed it to us. So you all should be getting, it has to go through a bit of checks before it's like approved, but you should get an email this weekend allowing you to log into the Speaker Launch platform, which is where you'll be able to, in the future, upload your own courses, things of that sort. We're going to do it with ours first. And those first 6 courses are the Speaker Launch courses, right? So the podcast course, the local associations, the conference playbook, the media playbook, the inbound playbook, and the outbound playbook. If you're a SpeakerHub user, you will have access to all 6 of those playbooks this weekend, right? So what you'll see is the platform that we're using ourselves. The goal is at the launch of SpeakerHub 2.0 in March, you'll be able to also put your courses in and sell your courses to our 200,000 unique visitors. So if there's a speaker with anxiety, they'll be able to buy Bonnie's book or course. If there's a speaker that wants to learn about the map process that Kevin uses, they'll be able to buy that course or training. If there's a business owner that wants to learn more about emergency preparedness, they'll be able to buy what Bart offers regarding training or whatever. This is coming really fast. So we've invested a lot in trying to make this happen. We're going to test it ourselves first before we put you all in it. We didn't think it was fair that we used Teachable or some other platform, but we're going to tell y'all should use ours, right? That's a hypocrite. We will not do that to you. Everything that we use, we will give it to you. Does that make sense? So, any other questions or comments before we head off?
I just wanted to add to say thank you. Hi, excuse me.
Oh, go ahead. No, go ahead. Finish Dr. Flo, and then we'll go to Carter's.
I just wanted to say thank you to Miss Angela. She sent me the link. Thank you.
Perfect. And Carter's, what were you about to say?
I'm saying that's deep. Like, I'm sorry, I couldn't control myself. It was just like, oh, you hinted at it. Like, I appreciate that, because I mean, it's going to drive engagement, and then it's going to give you so many tools. Like, you've given us so many arms and legs to kind of like navigate and climb up this proverbial mountain that we're climbing, right? So this is just like one other tool that we could be able to use. And I know I'll be listening to kind of like the mental health talks and all those different things on the channel as well. And hopefully somebody will listen to like, oh, okay, what does adaptive leadership look like? What does inclusive leadership look like? And how does that build off each other? And like, we're building off of literally each other with that type of platform. So I was just so excited I had to say thank you.
No, we got a lot of stuff coming soon. Let me just show you really quickly. When you go to the SpeakerHub homepage, if you go to pricing, you'll see we have our sales tools, we have our marketing tools, but we have this education. And right now, the only one that's live is the daily meetings. What you'll see that'll come alive when you log back in over the weekend is courses and the challenge, right? So we have the booked in 5 days challenge, where with the free trial of the software, we will walk you through a challenge where we say, hey, you're going to get a response in these 5 days if you just listen to us, right? So yeah, this is what we're doing. This is the future. I can't wait to be able to show you the platform and what you're going to have access to over the weekend. Let's get Gustavo to come on and show it tomorrow. I think we should do that. So we'll get Gustavo to come in to show the actual course platform and the network, because you'll be able to talk to each other, send each other messages, do all of that this weekend, right? So you'll see the full interactivity of SpeakerHub and how it will be more of a family dinner table type of thing. So if y'all have nothing else to say, I'm gonna go get me some lunch before my 2 o'clock, and I will catch up with you all tomorrow. See you later.
Bye, everyone.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.